You're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the first Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to RBLR Lightning. As always, my name is Jake Ricker, and alongside me today is my good friend and co-host, Matt Gannon. We're without Joe Zamataro today, but Matt, welcome to the show. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. It's we're in full swing speculation season. We got some trade rumors to talk about. Looking forward to what a trade deadline will bring us. I think we're gonna the deadline will have passed us by next week's show. So speculation season is here. How are you doing, Jake?
I'm doing great. And, listen, the Lightning had kind of a weird week, kind of a rough week a little bit, but I'm excited for this trade deadline talk that we're going to get into because especially, unfortunately, Sergachev got hurt, but if you can even say, fortunately, the Lightning do have a lot of cap space, so there could be a lot of different moving pieces for the Lightning this year. Now, they don't have a lot of assets to give up, which we'll get into, but it's going to be a fun show regardless. We got an action-packed one coming up for you. We'll talk about the trade deadline, some of the pieces the Lightning could be looking at, and of course, we'll recap the games from last week and look ahead for the Bolts and give you our 3 stars just like we always do. So be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on episodes just like this one. But with that said, Matt, let's get right into the trade deadline because I think that's what everybody is most excited about. The trade deadline is this Friday, upcoming Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. So just a couple of days away, not much more time for these things to happen. We've heard a lot of different rumors. We've talked about on the show a couple of times the ones about Chychrun. We've heard Noah Hanifin's name a lot, Sean Walker. Those are some of the common names that we've heard the most. We'll get into some new names here too in a little bit, but let's start with Noah Hanifin, Matt, because that's the big one, right? That's the one. He's a top piece on the trade market, and he's been connected to the Lightning a lot because he has said that he wants to play in Tampa, whether that's through a trade or whether it's through free agency. So he has shown interest in coming to Tampa, which has got people very excited. Matt, I think this is a trade that I believe it was Elliot Friedman who said that if this could have been done already, it would have been done. But the hard part here for the Lightning is figuring out what assets they can give back to the Flames to make that trade happen. Because you look at the salary cap and all that, I think JBV can absolutely make that work. It does get a little tight with salary cap and Stamkos' contract next year, but this is a guy that wants to play here. You get that special Florida state discount, and then you get him wanting to play here discount maybe. So even though it'll be tight, you could definitely make it work. But the biggest problem seems to be right now is what are you giving up to get Noah Hanifin?
Yeah, he's obviously the belle of the ball on defense. Everybody wants him, and he's a fantastic player. And, it makes sense for this season, and that's what I've been saying. It doesn't make any sense past this season, but I've kind of been talking myself into really liking, what could, come with an extension. But, I guess let's walk before we do run. I don't know what a Hanifin package does look like, especially because Calgary, they have been the selling team all year from day one of the season. They've been, where's Tanev going? Where's Zadorov going? Where's Hanifin going? Everybody, speculating on what Calgary is going to get rid of. And they've really picked up some heat here in the last couple of weeks. So maybe they don't even move on from Hanifin. But if they do, I'd love to see him in Bolts Blue, especially, a guy that wants to play here as well. How often do you hear, yeah, I want to go play for Tampa? People definitely want to, but it's not like I want to go play for my hometown Toronto Maple Leafs or my hometown Oilers or Rangers or something. You don't hear that often. So it's really cool to hear somebody saying they specifically want to come play in Tampa. So obviously we would like him. And I guess let's go back to what I was saying. It doesn't make sense past this year. I think I talked myself into saying, yeah, it does, especially if we can get him to a reasonable extension. I was thinking to myself, you got, Hedman, you have Sergachev. Why do you need another loaded, left shot defense? Well, it won you 2 Stanley Cups and got you to 4 or 3 of them, I guess, with Ryan McDonough playing that second, sometimes third pair.
Yeah.
It worked. It really did work. And of course, it might not translate. Noah Hanifin isn't Ryan McDonough. They are both fantastic players in their own right, but it has worked for us in the past. Hanifin's a good mix of offense and defense. I can see it working a lot. Is there any like mock trade you have in mind for acquiring Hanifin? Because Calgary, they have not that they haven't done well in these deals, but I feel like, Chris Tanev got picked up for a pretty, decent price for Dallas. Didn't give them a whole heck of a lot. Zadorov as well. He went pretty cheap to Vancouver. So, of course, Hanifin is the main guy. He's going to be the most expensive guy, but I don't think it'll be Tanner Jeannot, like trade where it's just a blockbuster for the wrong team.
Yeah, so Hanifin, 11 goals, 24 assists, and 35 points on the season so far, and he's a plus 13. So when you look at just the stats alone, you can tell he's a very valuable piece. The rumor is that they're looking for like a first-round pick, a prospect, and a roster player. That's kind of been the general idea. Will they get that? I don't know. There's a lot of different factors that go into this thing, especially with the trade market. Also, I thought because of the Tanev trade, I thought that price maybe came down a little bit because I don't think they got what they wanted for Tanev. I think they got a little bit less than they were expecting. So I've heard a lot of different things thrown out. If you go with that formula I just mentioned, you think the 2026 first round pick, because that's the earliest first round pick that the Lightning have. When you come to prospect wise, a lot of people sit out here and say, Lightning have a very bad prospect pool. It's not that they don't have a bad prospect pool. They just don't have a ton. And the Lightning are notorious for coming away with players that nobody saw coming in their prospect pool. They're like, where did this guy come from? I thought they had nobody on their prospect pool list again. So it's not that the Lightning don't have prospects. They've got them, and I'm sure they'll come up because our scouting team is so darn good and our development program is so darn good. Isaac Howard's been a name that's been thrown out a couple of times. I'm not thrilled about that idea because he was one of our only first-round picks in the system right now. But there's a couple of guys that they could go. I will tell you this. One guy I don't want to see get moved in this deal is Maxim Groshev. I'm super excited about him. There's a couple of those names that, you're not iffy on, but they've had a lot of rookies come up and play for them. Like, listen, Mitchell Chaffee. Again, it's a player that we've seen a lot, and he's played very well so far for the Lightning, but he's a prospect that could potentially be moved. Cole Koepke's another one. Those aren't as a higher end prospects as Isaac Howard, but those are the kind of names that you kind of have to think. And then as for a roster player, that's a little tough. I know everybody's throwing Connor Sherry's name out there, but I don't think the Flames would take Connor Sherry, and the Lightning are hoping to use him as a piece that can sit on the roster for cheap over the next couple of years. So honestly, don't know. Like, is Tanner Jeannot, you're not going to give up that guy if you just gave up 7 picks for him earlier, and he's been hurt. He's been playing better, getting used to the system. So, 2026 first round pick, Isaac Howard, and then one of the roster players. You could argue ABB was a roster player at one point. So maybe he gets worked in there somehow. I don't know. That it's kind of hard to fit the what they would want back in return. You could say Eric Chernak, but he's a guy that's signed.
No chance.
Wow, I don't see that either. Maybe the Lightning throw in some extra picks and that gets rid of the roster player spot. So it's hard. One thing I do know, Matt, Brendan Hagel is not going to be involved in the deal. I don't know if anybody saw this, but there was a clip on Twitter from one of the Sportsnet podcasts, and they were talking about the Hanifin trade and how could the Lightning make this happen. And they threw Hagel's name out there. And I'm sitting there going, why? No, Hagel is not going anywhere. There is no way the Lightning go and trade Brendan Hagel. That would be a terrible, terrible move.
Yeah, I'd expect them to trade, Hedman and Stamkos and Sergachev before they trade Hagel. Like,
right.
His value has skyrocketed. Like, you could get a great player for Hagel, but you're not going to get a Hagel back. Like, he is off the market, like as untouchable gets.
Somebody said that they see Stamkos more likely than being traded than Hagel, and JBB said, we're not trading Stamkos. I thought that was pretty funny. But bottom line is, listen, this trade is going to be tough to work out because they don't have a ton of pieces and the asking price is kind of high, but it can be done. I think there are ways for this deal to happen. It's hard to play, our GM here. Well, we're looking at this on computers, but I think it's something that can happen. I think it's definitely the Lightning's best or top priority. I think that's their best trade they can make. I think Hanifin's a great player. I think he can impact the team, and he can impact the team for the years to come, which is something that JBB does often. Matt, are there any other guys that you've had on your radar specifically when it comes to the trade deadline, though?
Of course, Hanifin's been the guy that everybody's fixating on. There's other names like Chikrin. What else? Eric Johnson's an interesting name. Buffalo is pretty much out of the race, and maybe not where we need the defense because he's a righty. He plays the left side. I don't know if that's what they really want. I think they're really going to be looking for a left shot defense, as well as depth players as well. I was also having fun, thinking of what we could get for Hanifin and maybe bringing back Blake Coleman. He's been terrific this year. He's kind of
love that.
I would love that too. He's blossomed into a great player, away from the Lightning. Loved him even before he was on the Lightning, but he's kind of turned into Calgary's Hagel. Nobody's touching him. He is kind of their honey badger. We all know how Blake Coleman plays, but a name that a lot of people aren't really talking about, and for decent reason. He's on a very bad team, but he was at the end of it, a very underrated player on Tampa, but Jan Ruda, he's a name that I don't think a lot of people even really remember. Like it's been a little bit since he's been on the team, but he did really help stabilize the blue line once him playing with Hedman. He was a very underrated, undervalued piece of this team. He's only a -13 on a terrible Sharks team. He never finished a year minus with the Lightning, which was actually pretty surprising to me. He was always pretty positive, and they were always pretty high positives too. I think the highest he finished was plus 25 one year. But again, kind of going back to the same issue with Johnson, he's a right-handed shot, but at the same time, I do think that's somebody who knows how to play in the system, even with Jeff Blashill ruining things. He knows the guys. He knows the important people to play with. He's just somebody else that I think you could get probably pretty cheap, as well as securing maybe another depth player off of San Jose as well. I don't think that they're going to be selling very high at all, especially with the way that the Lightning operate. They, with the Hagel deal, that was kind of the belle of the ball a few years ago. He was the big name, but going back to Blake Coleman and Barclay Goodrow, David Savard, those weren't the key guys everybody was looking at around the league, but they were the diamonds in the rough that ended up turning into Stanley Cup champions and huge parts of the team. I think that they might have their eyes on especially learning from last year, a undervalued something that the own GM doesn't know what they have. They might try to find value very cheaply, and I think San Jose will be a good place to do that. And it might not be Jan Ruda. Mario Ferraro is a name that's been thrown around a lot as well. I think he could. He's a younger guy. I want to say under 25. He's a guy that has been speculated more than a lot of other defensemen as well. I could see him coming over. I think he's a left-handed D, so he could fit in that bottom pairing spot, or wherever he slots in on the right side. So he's somebody else that I've kind of been looking at. Don't really know what his asking price might be, but again, just everybody fixating on the defense. I see value there. That's not going to be insanely priced.
Yeah, and those are guys too, like if the Lightning go out and acquire a bigger piece like Noah Hanifin or maybe Tarasenko, who I'll get to in a little bit, or some other forward, and then they could go back and grab, okay, we don't have a ton of assets to acquire a big defenseman. We still need help there. That's where I think those guys can come in too, right? Jan Ruda or the other guy from the Sharks that you mentioned. So that's something else they could look at as well. I do want to mention this too. I know some people have floated the idea, well, maybe the Lightning aren't going to be buyers at the trade deadline. I don't see that happening. I think they're definitely going to be buyers. From JBB's comments, he's kind of, well, I say JBB's comments, but he says the same thing that he says every year, which is just business as usual, basically saying everything's on the table. We'll see what happens. But the Lightning have had a lot of scouts out at a lot of different places. They've been linked to a lot of different names. Hanifin, again, the one that comes up the most often. So I would fully expect them to be buyers. And listen, they are in a playoff spot right now. And even with the games in hand that other teams have, the Lightning are still in a pretty good spot, especially because of the fantastic day that they had yesterday. They didn't even play, but yet the Penguins lost, the Capitals lost, the Islanders, I believe, are playing tonight. But they got put in a better position because a lot of the teams they needed to lose did. So,
and the Devils as well.
That's right. So the Lightning are still in a playoff spot. And Matt, as we've said so many times before, right? Or we've seen before, like with the Florida Panthers just last year, all you need is a ticket to the dance, right? Listen, the Lightning have been great this year. They've been wild and consistent. We'll get to that with the game recaps, but all you need is a ticket sometimes to get hot at the right time. And these trade pieces could be just what the Lightning need to get themselves back on track.
Yeah, literally just a ticket to the dance. And this trope might be getting a little dated now with the team getting a little older and a lot of core guys leaving. But again, who knows what happens when you can get in? Goes for any team. Look at St. Louis in 2019. Look at the Panthers last year. Both times we won the cup in the back-to-back years, we were the third seed. Like, the Lightning were kind of expected to do something, but still the third seed. You're not, a world beater or anything. Just get in. Who knows what you can do? There's still a lot of passion, a lot of champions left on this team. Again, who knows what happens come April, but this team has the ability. John Cooper has the ability to get this team to catch fire. We've seen it done before. Everything does have to click at the right moment, and hopefully a new person on the team will give this team a little bit of a jolt of energy. They might have perfect chemistry and good synergy with each other. Hopefully, this trade deadline, whatever it does bring us, kind of galvanizes and gives the team a bit of a shot in the arm.
Man, I've got a couple of forward names that I want to throw out here as well, because the Lightning have been linked to some forwards as well. Novak was one of them, but he signed an extension in Nashville. I know, Matt, I saw your that would have been a fun one for the Lightning. I think it would have been a great pickup. Although, at least we don't have to worry about them giving up 7 draft picks to the Predators again.
Well, that was David Poile last year who made the Jeannot trade before he retired. I mean, what a way to send yourself out. But hopefully Barry Trotz might want to sell, much, much, much cheaper if we do decide to go the Nashville route. Not expecting it.
Here's a couple of forward names that I would be interested in. I want to hear your thoughts on them as well, because they have been linked. Like Tarasenko is an example of one. I think the Lightning were linked to Tarasenko last year as well, if I remember correctly. And he's an older veteran guy, but he's a guy that could be a little cheaper maybe. So that could be something where the Lightning are able to work him into the deal. But here's a couple guys that I like. I'll start with one that probably isn't going to happen, but I would be so excited for it, is Tyler Toffoli on the New Jersey Devils. He's a guy that I used to go trade out in the NHL GM modes when I always started those up. But the Devils said that they're not actively shopping Toffoli. It doesn't mean they're not listening to deals. That's a high price ticket item. Like the Lightning wouldn't be able to get Hanifin and Toffoli, but he's a really good, solid forward. They're having a good year on the Devils, even though they're struggling right now. And I would love to see him come over if they could somehow make it happen.
Jake, a lot has changed in just the last 6 hours in New Jersey. They fired Lindy Ruff as their head coach. Like a lot is going wrong. I think they're kind of starting to say, we're out of this. This year was a failure. Injuries and bad goaltending really let them down this year, which sucks because I was kind of cheering for New Jersey. I'm not anymore, with them still kind of nipping at our heels. But I think there was a report today that came out and said, yeah, we're going to listen to offers on Toffoli. We're not going to call GMs and say, hey, I believe so. I think I saw that earlier. I could be wrong, but as much as I'd love for that to happen, I've been a huge Toffoli fan even before, I really started watching the Lightning a bunch. Like when I used to play at the NHL video games, I'd always choose the LA Kings. I loved Tyler Toffoli. He was one of my favorite players. But as much as I'd like that to happen, that's a high price as well. I don't think they would trade him to the first team that they're really trying to catch as well. That would be a bit of a dumb move by Tom Fitzgerald. As much as I'd like that to happen, I think he's a smarter GM than to help boost the team that you're trying to catch.
Well, that one is definitely more of a long shot in there, but
wishful thinking.
It would definitely be one I would love. That's for sure. Here's one that I think is another good one for the Lightning, and this is a team who's not trying to chase us right now in the Eastern Conference, and it's the Seattle Kraken. How about Jordan Eberle, Matt? I think he's a great, solid young player. Again, another guy that might be kind of pricey. I'm not sure what the Kraken are looking for him there, but he's another guy that I would love to have.
I don't know if I'd call him quite young anymore. He's actually creeping up on his 1,000th game here in a couple of games. Yeah, he does give off, young energy. It definitely doesn't seem like he's played 1,000.
He's 33. Already. I don't know where I got quite young from. He skates like a young player.
He does. He does, and he's a guy I remember just making me pull my hair out, in the Islanders series a couple of years ago. In both of them, he's a very good player. He can fit in a lot of different places on the line, in the lineup as well. He can be first, second, third, maybe not quite the fourth line, but I think he'd be a perfect, third or second liner on this team. That is a very interesting name, Jake. I do like that because although we do need defense, the depth forwards is where we need help as well. I think it might have been you or Michael or somebody in the chat a couple days ago sent points from forwards this year, or from points from the top 6 forwards this year
versus
and
the
points from the
bottom
bottom 6 forward. And it was like a 200-point spread or something like that.
It,
Just
it,
something
it,
crazy.
yeah,
So help in the bottom 6 for scoring. It's pretty much necessary. So that is a very interesting name, Jake. I do like that.
Yeah, and hey, while we're over there, maybe go grab Yanni Gordon, bring him back as well.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, there's definitely some need for the Lightning in depth scoring. I think the most likely path for them, just from need-wise perspective, is obviously defense is the number one thing with Sergachev hurt. Although he was working out today, Matt. I don't know if you saw the video on Instagram, but he seems like he is quickly moving in the right direction, which is great to see. But defense is obviously the number one priority, and then depth scoring forward. And if they
Jake, there is another name on Seattle that I do like as well. We could possibly see a package deal. He is an upcoming UFA, but that's Justin Schultz. He's a bit older as well, but he's a good, stable, sturdy, stay-at-home defenseman. I believe he's a left shot as well. He could fit, pretty darn well into the Lightning system. Just a guy that, knows where to be, plays responsibly. I don't think they're going to be asking a whole lot for him, but I don't see him re-signing in Seattle this offseason. I think the teams are probably the team and the player are probably on the same page about that. He's probably a good candidate for somebody being dealt. I could see that happening as well. So if we could get Schultz and Eberle in one deal, that would be pretty awesome. And throw Gordon in the suitcase too. That's not happening. They love Yanni Gordon. But I could see that happening as well. He's kind of a low-key name, so I think we could get some good value on the Schultz end of it, the Eberle end of it. That could, draw a bit of a higher price, but he's still not the hottest commodity.
Well, and that would be the perfect JBB recipe, right? Like he grabs that one guy that you're not thinking about, and then he grabs one name that, is kind of one of the bigger names. And also, the factor of them being able to stay for multiple years. I don't know if Eberle and Schultz, how long they would be around with them being a little bit on the older side, but even still, like they fit that recipe of something that JB would go after.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear from our listeners as well. Let us know at RBLR Sports or in the comments right here on YouTube or on Twitter or whatever social media platform that you use. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say and who you're thinking the Lightning should go after as well. We're almost at 300 subscribers too. So
send some mock trades our way as well. That'd be fun too.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say as well. But yeah, so it should be an interesting trade deadline. The Lightning have cap space available. Even though most people are saying they don't have any prospects, they have some prospects. There's definitely moves to be made. And knowing JBB, he's been fantastic at 98% of his trades. I'm still not sold on the Janot one yet.
Nobody is.
Just because of the price. Listen, I'm cheering for Janot, but just because of the price. But he's a very good GM. He knows what he's doing. So I would not be surprised to see the Lightning make some moves come that 3 p.m. deadline. And of course, another reason that you should subscribe right here and help us get to 300 subscribers. We'll be covering all the trades the Lightning make next week on our show on when it comes out that following week. So be sure to look out for that. All right, Matt, let's talk about some of the games here for the Lightning. And, it was a weird week. On our show last week, we said that, listen, these are some not as good teams on paper. These are ones that you probably want to go out there and win. Philly was the toughest on paper one. And unfortunately, Matt, the Lightning did not get off to a great start as they fall to the Flyers 6-2. And this was a weird game in the sense, well, for a couple of reasons. It was tied after the second period, a 1-1 hockey game. And then the third period, everything fell apart and the Flyers ran away with this one. And you get that lopsided score of 6-2 with Cooper pulling the goalie very early in the game. And then also, not to mention, there was a power outage during this game. Bally lost their broadcast for like half of the game. They had to go use the NBC Philly feed for a while. And I believe it was Dave and Paul on the call for a little bit because they could not get back to Dave and Brian. So crazy things happening over in Philly during that whole game. And unfortunately, they get a bad result with it in that 6-2 loss.
Yeah, this game, I actually I pretty much forgot about the whole power outage thing. I really tried my best to erase that entire game from my mind.
Sorry.
Ignoring the no. Actually, I'm glad you brought it up. Ignoring the actual on ice product, this game drove me nuts with with Bally. First of all, the app was just acting up for me, and then I know it's not Bally's fault that the power went out, but what took so long getting it back up? NBC Philly had theirs back up within 10 minutes. Once the power was back on, they were good, but it took Bally a whole extra
Apparently, they
period.
got the better outlet to be plugged into. I don't know what happened over there.
I mean, the home team gets the home broadcast. I get that, but help them out a little bit. Like, I only got to watch essentially half the game, and it was, the only parts really, worth watching are the ones that I missed, apparently. Like, it didn't get any better once I got the stable broadcast back. But while Paul Kennedy and Dave Andrewchuk were, air quotes, calling the game,
It was more like a commentary for the most part.
it was funny. Like, I had to tune in just for the spectacle. Like, I love Paul Kennedy. He did as good as he could. Dave Andrewchuk, I love him as a player. He's not great on the TV. Like, I don't know. He's He's not.
He's an
not good
analyst. He's not a color guy. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, he should maybe be a writer. I don't know. He butchers names, and nothing against him, but like, I don't know. I don't know if TV's his thing. He's definitely better than me, but it was just really funny seeing these two dudes just completely out of their element. They handled it great though. They really rolled with the punches, but it was definitely entertaining for a bit, and then it kind of got a little sleepy, just like Paul.
Just like the Lightning, it looked like in that third
Yep.
period. I mean, and that was the frustrating part about this game, right? Was that it's a close game. It's a 1-1 hockey game, and the Lightning were actually playing decent for the most part. And then they fell apart. And it's like,
Mhm.
wait a minute, we're in this tight playoff race right now. Where's the excitement, the energy that you're supposed to come out with in that third period? And you just didn't see it whatsoever, which raised, I think, a lot of question marks for me.
And credit where it's due, John Tortorella and the Flyers, they did a great job on locking things down.
Absolutely.
Even when the game was tied, you weren't getting very far past that neutral zone. Certainly, not very far past Philly's blue line. They did a very good job on shutting things down and coming into our zone and forechecking us really hard. And the Lightning really didn't have an answer for an old school, gritty, Philadelphia style team, a John Tortorella style team. He's really squeezing blood from a stone with that team. And I give all the credit in the world to John Tortorella. Just like everybody else, I'm kind of, mixed emotions on Torts. The older he gets, the more I love him. Like, I really do respect the man, but, some people hate him, some people love him. Regardless how you feel about him, he's getting Philly to play some fantastic hockey, and the Lightning just really didn't have an answer. It was it wasn't a boring game. Again, I didn't get to watch, half of it
It was
essentially.
boring because we couldn't see it.
Exactly. But I don't know. The Lightning just really didn't have an answer. It just really looked kind of lethargic and didn't look like they were really wanting an answer until the game was out of reach. You pull the goalie and you get the tale as old as time where there's the time's kind of dwindling. Okay, let's really try now. You get the top unit out there and they're really cycling things around. Why can't you do that during the rest of the game? Why do you have to wait till the very end to really, try your hardest? And that's the one thing that bothers me for the last, 3 years, that you really just only try when you feel like it. And I know it goes deeper. I know I really don't have, a leg to stand on talking about professional, top level athletes. I have zero credibility to speak on what they should be doing, but it is a bit of a theme. That's what I noticed here. Just kind of lackadaisical until the very end. You got the one, goal with the goalie pulled, but that's really all you had to show for that game.
Yeah. And Matt, it got better, right? It got better after the next game, right?
You got a point.
Well, Lightning, unfortunately, things did not go better as they lose to the Buffalo Sabres, returning home on home ice at Amalie Arena, and they lose 3-2. And this is a game, Matt, we said last week on our show, this is when you got to win, right? Buffalo has been a kind of a middle of the pack team. They're a little bit lower in the Atlantic standings. They're not in the playoff race. You're back on home ice where the Lightning have been very good for the most part. And they lose this one 3-2. And yes, you do get the point, but right now the Lightning are in a situation, and even with these games in hands that we talked about earlier, it's still a very tight race in the Atlantic Division. Like, it's going to come down to a couple of points. So you need everything that you can get. And losing to the Sabres on home ice is not where you want to be losing those points. It was an inch. Me and you were at this game, Matt. We got to experience it in person, and it was weird. First period, that top line, especially with Braden Point, Kucherov, and Hagel, they were buzzing. I mean, they're
Yep.
going. Kucherov nearly had like 2 goals early on in the game. Couldn't quite get it. Point does eventually get one, but then Point had a turnover in their own zone, which has been a theme for the Lightning all year long. The Sabres tie it back up. The Lightning get the lead in the second period, and then in the third period, they start to fall asleep again, and the Sabres come away and they score on a power play, and then they score again on the man advantage in overtime to get that final goal. So it felt like to me, Matt, every time the Lightning had some momentum here, it was followed up by them just kind of, because they weren't able to get a goal out of the momentum, the Sabres took over and they got the momentum all back. It just shifted right back in their favor, and they were often able to capitalize, especially with those late penalties. And you're just wondering, again, where's that compete? You're in a tight playoff race. You're back on home ice in front of your fans, and which is what makes this loss so frustrating.
Yeah, to me, the theme of the year and a microcosm of this game, like you said, Jake, is momentum swings and the Lightning just having no answer for momentum, be it good or bad. When it's good momentum for the Lightning, they can't, seem to feed off of it. They can't build and roll guys out there. They get the goal and they feel good, and then they kind of let the other team answer right back. And when the other team is starting to steamroll and, snowball uphill, they don't have an answer for it. They kind of crumple down and just stick to their guns that obviously aren't working. The defensive system that lets the other team just run around and play catch with the puck until it ends up in the back of the net. That's what, kind of happened in this game. And it wasn't, sheer domination by either side for many parts of the game. Each team did have their chances early in the game. Of course, the Lightning, Braden Point and Kucherov specifically looked fantastic. Braden Point looked like he was playing in an all-star game out there with, dangles between the legs and deacon guys out. That first period was one of his best periods of the year. But, just couldn't really keep that going. Couldn't keep that same momentum from the first period into the second. That's a tale as old as time as well. Playing well in the second, not really their friend at all. I don't know what went wrong in this game. There wasn't one event that really turned this game on its head or anything, but just Buffalo, we let them claw back into the game. We had leads. At one point, I was telling my buddy, I was like, hey, if this is a blowout, we can get out of here early if you want or something. That didn't happen. Of course, at least we got the point. At least we, kept it to overtime, but it got hairy there at the end. And
Buffalo had all the momentum, and like the Lightning would have a power play and it would go nowhere, and then Buffalo just all of a sudden they've got all the pressure, they're moving the puck quickly, then the Lightning are taking penalties. It's like where tight race. This is a very important game for the Lightning. You're expecting them to respond in a big way, and they just never could do that. When something went wrong for them, it felt like they fell apart.
Yeah, that one power play in the third period was, I said this in the chat, it was one of the worst power plays I've seen all year. Is just Buffalo had more chances than the Lightning. Like, it really was.
Which is weird when you think the Lightning have a power play percent 20% best in the NHL.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's also the best at home as well. And just, I guess that one, it bothers me, but I'm not going to put a whole lot of stock into it because that's obviously what the Lightning are best at this year is the power play. So I'm not going to point fingers. It has been a little weak. It has been a little, lackluster over the last week or two or so, but still, you're first in the league. I'm not going to complain too much, but that penalty kill from Buffalo is what gave them life, I guess. I guess I answered my own question, but in-arena bias is a real thing. We did get away with some penalties. A couple of the penalties that were called against us, I wasn't a big fan of, especially the one in overtime. Didn't really get a good replay. I didn't watch a replay of this game, and they only show it once for 2 seconds in the arena. So they called hooking on Kucherov in overtime, which ended up leading to the eventual game winner. Did you think that was a penalty? Because I really didn't notice a lot.
I think I saw a replay after the game. I went back and looked at it. That one I could see. The one that got me was the penalty in the third period. I believe they called high sticking. That one I didn't see, and that one I question a little bit. But it comes down to listen, we don't want to make excuses. Obviously, it's like, okay, you got those bad penalties, but again, like, they just seem to just let it slip away from them so quickly. And credit to the Sabres. They capitalize on those chances. They're like, all right, you're going to give us a power play. We're going to tie this game. Oh, you're going to give us another one in overtime. We're going to end it. They score almost immediately on that power play in overtime too.
Yeah,
So,
it was one rush up the ice and it was over. And, nothing is more Buffalo than Buffalo playing great in the back half of the season, especially, whether it be for their football team or their hockey team. They love the back half of the season. They hate the middle of it. They love the beginning of it as well. But that's just the most Sabres thing in the world, is to play, because we're not only the only casualty Buffalo that's gotten Buffalo's way over the last week or so. They demolished Vegas 7-2. They beat a couple of other really good teams. We are just a number in Buffalo's recent history. So Buffalo's been playing good. So you have to give credit where it's due. And I thought it was really funny. I was sitting next to this older couple. They were Sabres fans living in Tampa full time. And I think I was talking to my buddy or something about Connor Sherry. I said, what does he even do here? And the old man didn't say a single thing to me, all game. And he said, I couldn't stand Sherry on the Sabres. Like, just started. I said the one thing about Sherry, and then the dude just started going in and in and in on it. And I was like, oh my God, is this what I sound like? Like talking about Connor Sherry. I thought it was really funny, but they were a really nice couple. I had to give them a shout out. Just thought, man, is this what I and everybody else sound like talking about Connor Sherry? Made me get a good chuckle. Oh, you did die.
And I'll step in here. I am not Jake Ricker, but silently in the background. But I'm wearing my Bolts hat. So
yeah, there you go.
Let's see. What was there? What would you think is the last thing you guys wanted to touch on before we get out?
I think we were still just covering the game. We didn't really have a whole lot to go in the Buffalo game. I think we got a lot out what we needed to say.
You guys didn't talk a lot about your experience. You guys went to a game together against Montreal.
No, it was the Buffalo game we were together for.
At Buffalo. Okay. I just have Montreal in my brain. What a thing. If there's one thing before we get Jake back in here, is how has there been a difference in going to the games? Like this is the one year I haven't gone. I used to live right around the corner from Emily, but I don't know. Is it? I saw you guys took a good picture together in the concourse, but yeah, what's it like going there?
I don't know. I'm still such a little kid. It's still such an event for me. Like no matter what the final score may end up being, I'm always just jovial there. Even if it's just a terrible blowout loss, I can find a way to have fun. As long as I'm with somebody cool or something like that, I can find a way to have fun. But, even before the game starts, I'm always just, on cloud nine, walking up, seeing the big red Amalie Arena and the big lightning bolt everywhere. It's still just such an event for me, even though I go to more and more and more games, each passing year. It's still, just no pun intended, electric for me. The building's always loud. It's always rocking. So it's still the same old experience for me.
All right. Well, let's get Jake back in here.
Welcome back.
I've stalled enough, guys. Here.
Yeah, my apology. My internet's starting to act like the Lightning's second half play there. But we're back. We're good to go here now. I heard Eureka. You guys are talking about the game experience. It's still fantastic. I still love it. I love going to games. It's so much fun. The fans are awesome, even though we still deal with a lot of opposing fans coming down to the arenas. But it is a ton of fun. I'm right there with you, Matt. You're walking up those stairs and you just get that feeling that literally you feel that electricity in the building. It's a blast. But all right, let's get to that last game. We had the bad loss against Buffalo, and then you're taking on Montreal. You're saying, okay, we're going to rebound here, right? We're going to be okay. It got a little bit dicey, Matt, but the Lightning pull out the win in the shootout by a final score of 4-3. But hairs were growing, all your hairs went up early in this game because the Lightning go down 2-0 to the Montreal Canadiens early in this game. It was not looking ugly. The Lightning love to go down 2-0 to the Canadiens apparently in these games. Like to make this interesting for whatever reason. They do storm back, and then Tyler Mott scores a huge shorthanded goal in the third period to get the tie. No one able to convert in overtime, and then Stamkos and Hedman are your two that score in the shootout to get the Lightning that extra point, a much needed 2 points, I should say, as well there, Matt. But interesting game against a division rival.
Yeah, we were talking about this in the pre-show. Just something about Montreal coming into Amalie Arena just makes the weirdest games possible over the last couple of years. Even before, this year, they're always just kind of some funky games. But I don't know. I didn't get to watch this game. This is maybe the first game in maybe a couple of years that I did not, watch with my eyeballs live. I listened to the radio broadcast the entire way through, but I was in the car for 4 hours. So I only got to feel one part of this game, but I don't know. I was never overly stressed. Like, it might have been different watching the TV. Yeah. So I was going to ask you, like, so this game or the New Year's Eve game, the one with the no whistle, heard around the world or whatever, which game had you just more, stressed, pulling your hair out, worried for the rest of the game? Are they about on par?
Stressed was definitely this game, the most recent one. The New Year's Eve game, I was furious. I was angry because I was too busy booing the refs the whole time to be worried about that game. But yeah, they made it interesting. But the thing was, right, and this goes back to some of the Buffalo game too, right? You see moments with this team, like when they came back in that second period and tied, it's like, hey, there we go. This is the Lightning team we know and that we've come to love and expect, from what we've seen from them before. So they battled back in this game, and then it started to get a little dicey in the third period, but they showed signs over all these games, really, where they're like, we know they can play a great full 60 minutes. They just haven't been able to do it. Shout out Tyler Mott, by the way, who was absolutely fantastic.
He's so good.
Such a solid plus. He doesn't score a lot. I know we talked earlier, Matt, about the point differentials between the top six and the bottom six. But Mott and Glendening, both those guys have been really solid bottom six forward for the Lightning. And he scores a huge goal in this one, shorthanded as well. So listen, the Lightning got the point at the end of the day. They got the 2 points that they needed. Was it a lot less pretty than they maybe wanted it to be? Oh, absolutely. But they get the 2 points. And at the end of the day, that's the most important part for them in this tight playoff race.
Yeah, Tyler Mott is just Brandon Hagel with zero desire to score and still, gets a goal here and there. He's such a good player. I know Joe is trying to draw comparisons between him and Connor Sherry. Nah, that's apples and oranges right there. Tyler Mott's such a good player. So happy to have him. But yeah, again, I got, different vibes from this game, only listening, to the radio broadcast, and even that through, a wrench in my plans as well. I, of course, try to listen to Dave and Phil. Well, there were technical difficulties with the Bolts radio broadcast. I always listen through the NHL app, and after a bit of a Robo Dave and then just completely cutting out, it switched me over to the Montreal broadcast. So I got to listen to Montreal broadcast, and it's actually kind of, I'm not going to say fun, but it's interesting to listen to what other teams,
different perspective.
Yeah, and the radio broadcasters are always 10 times more biased than the TV broadcasters, and they have every right to be. Just like Dave and Phil, like Jack Edwards is a bit of an exception, but the radio broadcasters have every right in the world to be as biased as possible. And they had a lot of good things to say. It wasn't bad, but I thought it was really funny in that third period. They were when Montreal got their power play, talking about how Tampa, they just, have no energy on the penalty kill. They can't score shorthanded or anything like that. And as they were talking about how bad, not bad they are on the penalty kill, but just how low they are. They were the I think they were or still are the team with the least amount of shorthanded goals this year. Mid-sentence, he said, "Oh, Mott scores shorthanded," and he even acknowledged, he was like, "That's my bad. You guys can blame me for that one." So that was really funny.
That's
but
funny.
Yeah, I got to watch or got to listen to Montreal's broadcast the whole game, and again, it's just always really interesting hearing different teams' perspectives on different players. They were very, very, very complimentary of Brandon Hagel. He was the name that I heard the most this game, but not having watched this game, Jake, What was the third period like? Because they went down, midway through the third period. The whole game was definitely, up and down. We shouldn't be down. But that third period where we get the shorthanded goal, after going down in that third period, what were the vibes like once we tied it all up?
Well, when the Lightning went down, it was obviously extremely frustrating. And I think I said this in our chat. It was more of the same to me of what happened in that Buffalo game, right? Like the Lightning had some momentum. They looked good. And then they weren't able to capitalize or they'd get called for whatever it was. Something would happen. And then all the momentum just shifted right back to Montreal. And Montreal just seemed to very much take advantage of it. They scored that one goal to go up. So it was more of the same that was happening in Buffalo, where they just could not capitalize on the momentum and they're letting it slip right back to the opposing team. The shorthanded goal, that was electric. Well, I shouldn't say electric. It was a big sigh of relief for me. I'm like, okay, tie game. We're still in this one. We're not going to lose to Montreal on home ice as of right now anyway. So it was a big sigh of relief. And then listen, I know everybody doesn't like shootouts, but I still enjoy them. And the Lightning and Stamkos scoring was great. Although that shootout was a little frustrating because there were a lot of shots there where it's like, oh man, I just feel like make a move, do something there. And a lot of the shots were just kind of straight on a little bit. But hey, they got the 2 points of the day, which is the most important part.
So what was another question I have? What was overtime like? Was it, there were good chances on either end? Was it dominated by one team? It's not every day we get to go to a shootout. So
I think the Lightning had a lot of decent chances in that overtime. They just weren't able to capitalize on it. I won't sit here and say that the Lightning dominated in the overtime period. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong here, Matt, but I believe the Lightning had a power play.
I think they did.
And in that overtime.
Don't mind Miss Morgan here, by the way. She's trying to eat my headphone wire.
Morgan's so excited about this game. She wants to know more, right?
Can you hardly blame her?
That's right. So Hedman had a chance where he walked up and I thought it was a goal for sure. He walked right in the crease and he was trying to get his long arms out to sneak it in, but he got hooked and the Lightning got a power play. Unfortunately, that power play, which is again the weird part, right? The Lightning have a 29%. Like normally their power play is really, really good. It was not good in that overtime. They didn't get any chances, and that killed a lot of that overtime momentum that they had, right? So you weren't able, because after those 2 minutes up, there's basically like a minute left, and they were sitting 4-on-4 for a little bit. So they had their chances in overtime. They had that power play. That Hedman chance, if he doesn't get hooked, that's a goal, and that game's over. So they got close, but just weren't able to capitalize on that power play, which was the tough part for the Lightning there.
I see it. And, the Lightning, I'd argue they're probably one of the better, if not the best shootout team. I'd love to see if there's a way that we could, if there'd ever be a tournament or something between teams, but I'm always pretty confident when it comes to the shootout, with the Lightning, especially with guys like Steven Stamkos and Braden Point. Victor Hedman, super underrated shootout guy, but like I was joking about a couple of weeks ago, we had another shootout win. Is Braden Point the best shootout player of all time, even though he didn't score in this one? I think it still bodes true. So regardless,
question I had during that shootout was why is Nikita Kucherov shooting? Listen, Kucherov is an unbelievable player. He should be the MVP. He's still tied in the NHL for league leading in points, but he is not good on breakaways. The guy just can't buy a goal that way. And he did shoot in that shootout and was not able to score. So
you know what? I like the idea of putting him in the shootout just because maybe
he's Kucherov. You got to do it.
Well, no, not even just because of that. But hey, maybe if you do get the shootout goal, maybe you might get some confidence or get a boost for your next breakaway. Mid game. So get the monkey off your back. Weird saying that to a guy with 105 points in 70 games or 60 games. Really weird to say that, but it could be.
Well, the Lightning get the 2 points. They look a lot better in the standings than we thought they were going to be because of what happened when we were scoreboard watching, but the Lightning are still in the thick of this race. They're sitting in that second wild card spot, and as long as they can continue to put some more consistency together, they should just be fine. Be just fine and be able to sneak into that second wild card spot. Matt, before we get into the 3 stars of the week, I do want to mention this as well. It's trade deadline season. We just talked a lot about some of the moving pieces. You know, one of the toughest things about the trade deadline is when your favorite player gets moved. You got their jersey or you got one of their shirts with their name on their back, and then you're like, this is harder to wear now because he's not on my favorite team anymore. Matt, I've got you guys covered. You can head over to shop.rblrsports.com and check out the awesome team-inspired merch from the Lightning, the Rays, the Bucks, the Rowdies, you name it, we got it. You can head over there, get some awesome new merch to wear to the game, even if your favorite player gets traded at this trade deadline. Shop.rblrsports.com. Links, as always, are in the description as well. Highly recommend you go check that out. And you can use code BOLTS to get 10% off your order.
Not the usual shock value for your transitions, Jake, but a beautiful on-themed one as well. So major props to you for the trade deadline one.
I had to get work in the trade deadline. All right, let's go to the 3 stars of the week here for the Lightning. A little bit tough this week, Matt, because as we kind of talked about, there was some tough sledding for the Lightning in 2 of these games, but I think we picked a pretty good list here. So our number 3 star of the week is going to go to a rookie, and that's Mitchell Chaffee. Chaffee's been a guy who's started to play some consistent time with the Lightning, and I thought he's been very impressive so far. He's a guy that kind of feels like a mini Brandon Hagel or Gourde sometimes, where he's always on the ice. He's running around, making plays. So really impressed with Chaffee this week, and he gets the number 3 star of the week.
Yeah, good for him, man. I don't know if he's made it on this list before. He's only been in the league for 20-something games, in total, but he's really making an impact playing bottom 6 minutes, fourth line minutes. Whenever he's out there, he's doing something. He had a bit of a dumb play in that Montreal game, shoving David Savard into the boards, turning into a boarding penalty. Dumb play, but the kid plays hard, and I say kid loosely. He's not all that young, but still a rookie. He plays hard. He plays, like you said, a little mini Brandon Hagel. He's a guy that finishes all his checks despite not being a big guy, and he's got a knack for the net. His playmaking ability is still a bit out there, but he's playing, bottom 6 minutes with bottom 6 guys. What do you expect from him? But he's got a knack for the net. He knows how to put the puck in the net, and he's kind of clutch. He's got a little bit of that clutch factor. He turned a nothing burger play into a goal to help us claw back into the game. He just makes an impact every time he's out there. Little Mikey Asimont-esque as well. Just with limited ice time, he finds a way to make his mark each time he's out there. So good for Mitchell Chaffee making an impact on this team and getting on the Nikita Kucherov stars of the week.
Kucherov stars of the week. That's right. Well, going to our number 2 star of the week, Matt, and it's a guy that's been talked about a lot this season. Unfortunately, not because of his play, but this week he was great, and that's Steven Stamkos, the captain. He gets the number 2 star of the week. He had a goal and assist and was even on the plus-minus category, which may not sound like much, but it was a week where a lot of guys were heavy minuses. So the captain getting on the star sheet, very good to have him back on here, Matt.
Yeah, honestly, I was surprised seeing that he was even on the week. This is a guy who has a pretty, damning plus minus. He's still in the minus 20 area, maybe the high teens or something like that. But he's slowed down a little bit. He's getting older, but he still has that clutch gene in him. Like I was talking about with Chaffee and like Braden Point, this is a clutch guy, just looking at his career so far, but he's a guy that, slowed down over the last couple of weeks, but hopefully, he's starting to pick it up. He played really well in these games this week. Even in the Philly game, he was, throwing his body around a little bit. This is a guy, not known for making big hits or anything like that, but he gets involved physically. He's a little underrated since coming back from some of his major surgeries. You wouldn't expect it from a guy like Stamkos, but away from the puck, he still has some game left in him. But when you compare him to guys like Point and Kucherov being -4 and -5 this week, he really did stick out with the way that he plays. Pretty much, I don't know, was he playing with those guys this week? I don't think so. He's kind of on the second line, right?
Playing on the third line a lot, actually, which was a little bit of a surprise when it first happened, but he's been doing it for a couple of games, and it seems like it's working out okay. I don't know if he'll be moved back up eventually. I don't know if it's Cooper just trying different line combinations out, but he did not play with Kuch and Point this week.
Yeah, I mean, even if he's on the third line, if it's a line with Stamkos on it, it's not a bottom 6 line. I don't think so. Call it what you want. Still, Stammer gets it done. Although a little bit of a quiet year, a good week from Stamkos, well-deserved, getting the second star here. First time in a while, it seems like, for Stamkos, but good to see him up here.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Matt, before we get to the number one star of the week, I do want to give a quick honorable mention to one guy who's never on the star sheet because he's not a player, but that's John Cooper. And Cooper had his Coops Catch for Kids this week, which is an event they put on every single year, and it's absolutely fantastic. I don't think there's nearly enough media coverage on this, especially considering the fact Cooper never gets a darn Jack Adams vote for whatever reason, but that's besides the point. Coops Catch for Kids, it's an amazing event. Wayne Gretzky was even there this time, and Cooch was smiling at the event, so you know it's a great one when Cooch is off. There's pictures of him smiling. But wanted to give a shout out to Coach Cooper for all the amazing he does in the Tampa Bay community.
Absolutely. There's nothing more that I can get down with in this world than hockey players going fishing. That is like me. That is like what I live for right there. If I could get on one of those boats, that's cloud nine for me. I'd be in absolute heaven. But it's even better that he's doing this for kids. I don't know, just what a guy. Guys, all the team members, all the players getting involved, buying into it as well. They're having as good of a time as the kids are taking out with them. These are hockey players. They're from middle America or middle of Canada. They're not used to Florida style fishing, so it's cool to see me, a native, getting to see these guys get to go and do it. And John Cooper, he's just such a class act. I don't know if you saw any of the videos of him with Austin Watson. They've got a really nice chemistry together too. Like, it seems like they can, they get along, but Coop just gets along with everybody. He's such an affable, personable guy. Having Wayne there as well, like Wayne Gretzky and John Cooper, the best hockey mind in the world, and Wayne Gretzky, like, that's so cool. Like, having those two dudes together. So just good on you, Jake, for bringing that up. Major credit to John Cooper. And yeah, there just is not enough media coverage about it.
No, there's really not, which is why I wanted to bring it up. All right, let's get to our number one star of the week, though. A player on the ice who was fantastic. He's a player that's known for his two-way play as well, and that's Anthony Cirelli. Cirelli gets our first star of the week, 1 goal, 1 assist, and was a +1 this week on the plus-minus category. So Anthony Cirelli is our first star. Matt, pretty solid week for AC.
Absolutely. Another clutch guy, another guy who I think a lot of people are more down on him for some reason this year, but he's just kind of the typical Anthony Cirelli. He's not anything super special, but he's a crucial guy to this team. He is unarguably part of this core. He knows, he's the best, one of the best defensive forwards in the game, and he proves that year after year after year. And another guy can't really shoot the puck all that well, but another guy that just has a nose for the net, knows where to go. He did have a really nice shot to get that goal this week. I think that was in the Montreal game, right? Where he got on the board. But just Tony Cirelli, a guy who is always in the right place at the right time, can play anywhere in the lineup, and is beautiful on the penalty kill with Brandon Hagel as well. Just a guy that knows how to get it done each and every night.
Yeah, he is fantastic. And Matt, you know what's funny? Actually, I almost didn't want to put him on this list because he did score in that Montreal game, by the way. But before he scored that goal, he walked right out in front of the net and then passed the puck. And I was sitting there going, Cirelli, you got to shoot that, man. Luckily, he did shoot just a little bit later and scored a big goal in that Montreal game, though. So Anthony Cirelli, our first star of the week. Chafee, Stamkos, and Cirelli are your 3 stars. Let us know at RBLR Sports or in the comments below what you guys think of our 3 stars. If you would put anybody different on that list, we'd love to hear from you as well. All right, Matt, last order of business. Let's look ahead here for the schedule. The Lightning actually have a lot of time off right now. They are currently scoreboard watching as they're in the middle of a 4-day break here. Their next game is going to be on the 7th, Thursday, at Amalie Arena, where the Lightning will be taking on the Calgary Flames, and they'll be dropping off star defender Noah Hanifin to the Lightning, hopefully. But Lightning taking on the Flames on Thursday, and then they'll take on the Flyers at Amalie Arena on March 9th on Saturday. And I do believe that is going to be the Hall of Fame game as well. So look out for that. That's coming up this week. So that'll be a lot of fun. And then the Lightning have another long 4-day break. So small. Yeah, the schedule is really weird for the Lightning this year. They've been ahead of everybody the whole time, and now they're having these long extended breaks for whatever reason. But the big question for me, Matt, on this week's schedule, because it's the Flames and the Flyers. The Flyers have been a solid team. They just beat us in Philly, this time at Amalie. Flames are not as good of a team, but the Lightning tend to struggle sometimes when they have these long breaks and have a lot of time off. Hopefully, though, because they know they're in a tight playoff race, they'll be able to come out swinging.
Yeah, I'll be going to this Flames game, so hopefully, like you're right, they do drop off Noah Hanifin and maybe Blake Coleman as well too. So it's grind time. I'm really, these next couple of games are really going to solidify what the Lightning are, who they are, and who they're going to get. So these are very important, upcoming games. Need to build some headway in the standings as well. Really solidify getting into the playoffs. I'll keep it brief because you can hear her barking in the background, I'm sure. So
he's just excited, Matt, for the upcoming games for the Bulls.
Who wouldn't be? I can't blame her enthusiasm. So Jake, I'll let you take us out of here so you guys don't have to deal with the little yappy dog.
Hey, it should be an exciting week for the Lightning nonetheless. With the trade deadlines, of course, we'll have you guys covered. Don't forget to follow us at RBLR Sports or subscribe right here on YouTube so you don't miss out on our trade deadline coverage next week. And the Lightning do have 2 big games coming up at home this week. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, we always appreciate you guys joining us, and we'll see you guys next week after the trade deadline. Go Bolts!
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.